And welcome to the podcast. This is episode 10 of the Wodarcyk Experimental Podcast. And before we get started, I want to announce that the podcast in the first month had over 1,000 downloads. In the world of podcasting,
Clearly, well received downloads.
Thank you. 1,000 downloads is not much. I think we're almost 1,300 now. But for me, I expected to have about 500 downloads after the first year if I was lucky. So this is incredible as far as I'm concerned. So if you've downloaded, liked the Facebook page, subscribed, shared, supported the podcast up until this point, I appreciate it. And I'm still trying to figure out where all the fans are coming from. So go on the Facebook page and send me a message or write a comment where you're from, especially if you're not from the Ohio Valley, because I am really curious of who's exactly listening to this. And but thank you for the support. Right now we're going to cue the music, which we don't have, so I'll edit it in later.
Can you play like some good rap music?
What's your favorite rap song?
I'm really into Kendrick Lamar, Humble right now, or just anything on his new album, Damn.
Well, it'll probably be some local rap artist because we're trying to support local. But
any local rap I will support.
Okay.
We're getting turned up on this podcast.
Yeah. Mama always told me go hard. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Ready?
Guest for today, Alex Panas. And also with us today is my new part-time co-host, Will Wallace. It's his first time. He's going to be joining the podcast from time to time.
I need the money, so I got a part-time job.
You're not actually getting paid for this.
Well, I gotta go.
So I know Alex. She's probably one of my newest friends. We met 2 weeks ago through our friend Sarah Clark at
We were at Later Gator,
yeah. And I think even Sarah commented, I'm surprised you guys don't know each other because we are in the same circle. But
I know, I've seen you around. I went to your movie premiere in the fall, so.
And I know I've seen pictures of you with Sarah because that's part of her profile picture. But now we're friends and immediately got you on the podcast before you got to know me too well and realized it was a bad idea.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know you mostly from the Wheeling Young Preservationist, but we talked a little bit earlier that you also work for the health plan. And what else are you involved in?
I would say I'm mostly involved in WHIP. That's kind of where I've dedicated my time, mostly since I've moved back here. I went away for college, like most of us do. I went to Ohio University in Athens.
Go Bobcats.
Yep. And I went to Ball State in Muncie. And when I moved back, I didn't just want to, punch the clock 9 to 5 and come home and, just do whatever by myself. I wanted to really be involved in the community, and there was an opportunity with WHIP, and I've kind of just gone full force into that. And my approach to community involvement is just to be dedicated to one or two or a couple of causes and make that your work. I really am not, something that wouldn't work for me is being on like a bunch of different boards or doing a bunch of different things, because to me that's just half-assing something. I would really wanted to hone in on like one or two commitments and make it work. So WHIP has been my baby, I would say, for the last year and a half, almost 2 years. And then recently I've joined the board for OV Connect, so I have been serving in that for a few months. I'm still getting my feet.
I pulled you into that.
Yeah, Will did pull me in on that, so.
And for those who aren't aware, WHIP is the Wheeling Young Preservationist.
Yes, Wheeling Young Preservationist.
I think that's when I met you, is when we both had to do interviews to join the steering committee. And I was like, I don't know who this lady is trying to step on my turf. That was it.
But from all accounts, you've been a welcome addition.
Absolutely.
I should say that we're recording on the top floor of the Artisan Center in the banquet hall, I guess. And so the noise you hear in the background are the diners down in River City that are getting ready for the show Annie, I believe, tonight.
No, Rent's tonight.
Rent
is tonight.
So if you hear people clinking dishes and chatting in the background, that's what that is.
It's definitely not the whiskey I'm drinking.
Yes. This is, in the spirit of an experimental podcast, this is the first one I think I've done while drinking alcohol.
There we go.
I think it'll help.
It's the second one I've done drinking alcohol of two.
That's right. So, this is a question, especially when I have younger people on the podcast. When I was young, everybody moved away after college and nobody wanted to come back, but you did. What made you decide to come back to the area?
That was purely out of necessity. I didn't want to. I'll be completely honest about that. When I was graduating, I was living in Muncie, so I had an internship in Indianapolis, so I was definitely looking for jobs there. I loved Indianapolis. It was one of those bigger cities, but small enough to where you could like have your bearings and feel like you were a part of something. So I was looking for jobs there. I was looking for jobs in Columbus. I was looking for jobs in Pittsburgh, kind of like these outlying areas of the Ohio Valley, so I was close enough to get home. But I wasn't finding anything that was the right fit for me, and I really wasn't finding anything that really aligned with what I wanted to do. So really, out of nowhere, I found a job posting on the Health Plan's website, which is a company that I had interned for in college, and my mom works there, so I was already familiar. So I applied for it. I took it. It wasn't my dream job by any means, but it was a job. I'm like anyone else. I had thousands of dollars of student loans. Sure. I didn't have an option to, wing it for a while. So I took that opportunity. I moved back, and honestly, it was the best one. I hate the term, when they say everything happens for a reason. I think it's kind of cliche, but I do think that it was the best possible thing that could have happened, because I couldn't have gone to Indianapolis, I couldn't have gone to Columbus, I couldn't have gone to Pittsburgh and had the same quality of life that I'm having now. The relationships that I've built in the projects that I've been involved in, on the level that I've been in, just wouldn't have been the same if I were anywhere else in here.
I agree. I reluctantly came back in 2000 and thought I would be here for a year, kind of get my bearings and head back out. And but now I'm firmly committed. I'll stay here forever. I've rediscovered the place, and I think we this comes up a lot on the podcast, but that's one of the things that I hope to show is that they're really interesting people and that there are great things to do, and there's a lot of cool stuff happening. And I think we even had this discussion at the Young Preservationist meeting last week that this is a great place to make your mark, because we're in a revolution now and things are growing. So we're on the ground floor. We're not walking into established ways of doing things. We can kind of set the pathway, and I always bring this up, that there's really no fashion style for Wheeling. When you go to Third Fridays or any place that the concerts or whatever, there's no one certain fashion style. It's ruggedly eclectic, and I think that's one of the great things about this, is that it's kind of burgeoning, and we're in on the ground floor, and that and the fact that people are really supportive of whatever anybody's doing. I know for us making films, we've gotten a lot of support, and Bridge and Tunnel has had a lot of support, and I've been in other places where I mentioned this earlier when I was talking to Michael Eifrate, that everybody is your friend until you become more successful than them, then they hate you. But that's not the case around here. When you're successful, people are genuinely happy for you and are willing to help you and cooperate with each other, and I guess there's not a lot of haters, except for Will.
I hate a lot. I have a question, and because we share similar post-college career paths where, I came back for a job and that was literally it. But what was that step between I'm here because I have a job to I need to get involved?
It was seriously whip. I remember I was on my Facebook page at work, which I definitely shouldn't have been doing, and I saw that there was an opening for a board position. I had not one thing about the Wheeling Young Preservationists. I don't even know how it popped up on my Facebook feed, to be honest. So I saw that. I'm like, oh, this seems like a cool opportunity, something that I want to get involved in, like young people, like caring about the infrastructure in Wheeling and wanting to preserve it. So I did a little bit of research. I was looking at your website, and I sent out like a resume, and I don't know, I wish I would have like looked up what I wrote, because Bennett just forwarded it to me. Not too long ago, and I was just really excited, and I was given the opportunity, and I just ran with it, because I think what a lot of people, anyone who has a negative connotation of what the Ohio Valley is, I think it is directly related to how willing those people are willing to get out of their comfort zones. I think I would say a majority of the friends that I have now are not people that I knew when I lived here in high school and growing up. I mean, obviously Sarah, I've known her forever, and she's my best friend, and that'll be a constant. But people like you, people like Will, everyone I've met through the Preservationists and just through various like events that I've gone to. If you put yourself out there, you're going to meet people that align with who you are now, as opposed to who you were.
No, I completely agree.
5-10 years ago.
People, especially, it's difficult for people to want to try, for lack of a better term, make their own fun. Make their own fun.
Yeah.
There it is. Is that better?
Yeah. I had Will lean into the microphone so we could hear his beautiful voice.
I'm leaning back because,
He's cool.
I lean back. Like,
he's cool like
that.
that.
Fat Joe? Is that Fat Joe song?
That is a Fat Joe song.
We have a rap fan in our midst. I like it. Oh, yeah. so go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's people like Danny Patton, who moved away, came back, but you could give that kid a ball of yarn and 2 pieces of broken glass, and the next day he would talk about how he had the best night ever because he made, I don't know what he would have done with it, but he would have figured it out. That's why he's the one who does it. But a lot of people are just kind of like, there's nothing to do in this town. It's like, it needs to be given to him on a silver platter,
Well, yeah, I heard Howard Monroe talk about that, and he was listing all the things that there are to do just this week in Wheeling, and he said, unless what you really want to do is sit on the couch, I'm paraphrasing, there's Towngate Theater, we have live theater, we have Rent tonight, not Annie, Rent, live local music, we have original music, we have cover bands, we're starting to get these great restaurants. There's no shortage of things to do, but you have to go out and want to do them. And
do you know why Annie wasn't tonight? Because I was doing this and I couldn't play Daddy Warbucks.
Oh my gosh, I saw a picture of that and I was like, oh my god, I wanted to take a screenshot of it and send it to you, but I wasn't sure like if you'd be offended or not.
It's definitely on my list of Halloween costumes. I haven't got around to it though. Pretty much between that and then, like, if I get in shape, I can be the hitman guy from the movies and the music video, or not music video, the video games.
Yeah, you could be. You could be the villain.
If it's a or Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor.
If it's a bald white guy, I can play it.
You got it nailed down.
I got it nailed down.
But yeah, I think that I am never bored, and in fact, there's more things going on than I ever have time to do, and I think just in the last couple of years, it's even more stuff is starting to pop up that it's ridiculous that how many things that I feel like I'm missing all the time. And I really enjoy the Young Preservationist mixers, which I don't get to them that often. But I've always found that it's a great place to meet all different kinds of people. And the discussion isn't always about preservation, but you get to meet these people that are doing really interesting things right here in the Ohio Valley.
I mean, that's what convinced me to stay is the first happy hour I went for back when it was the Ohio Valley Young Preservationist was dance through the years that Wheeling was growing. Like, different styles of dance was a dance troupe doing it, and they forced us to go and dance. And I had to, obviously have to dance with a bunch of people I didn't know. So I learned, I met a whole bunch of people and learned a little bit about history and about the growth of Wheeling, and all these people were super jazzed up to help, and it was interesting. Yeah. It was so new.
Just the attitude that people have.
And I think what's unique about the Wheeling Young Preservationists is you don't have to be a hands-on preservation. You don't have to be saving buildings to be a part of it, and that's Absolutely. What I like, because I certainly am not a fan of hard labor on a regular basis. So I bring what I can to the table, which is writing and making us sound good when we're doing things. But the people
and
keeping everyone in check. I'm pretty organized. But I think what's unique about our group is that any person from any walk of life could walk through the doors and come to an event and feel welcome, because it's not just about saving buildings, it's about building a community, making people excited about Wheeling, and just getting back to making your own fun. We are kind of on the cusp of like fun season in Wheeling, where you have to choose between all the different events going on. Like last night it was a Friends of Wheeling dinner, and it was the OV Connect happy hour, and I'm sure there were a handful of other events going on, and it was
Mother Earth at Later Gator.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Mother Earth at Later Gator.
And then there was an open mic bowling that Adrian Niles started over at the bowling alley
in St. Clair,
over by the tunnels.
Oh,
by the tunnels, yeah. Or no, not bowling, pool.
pool.
The pool hall over by the tunnels.
Yeah. So it's nice to have to choose between what you're going to do on a Wednesday night in Wheeling. So that was really neat. And I also think what's unique about Wheeling, too, is that if there's not something that you like going on, like if you're not interested in going to a concert or going to the Friends of Wheeling dinner, you can make your own opportunities. Aaron and I were driving in tonight for this interview, and we were talking about, he's like all up in arms about this craft brewer that got bought out by Anheuser-Busch. And he was like, people don't understand like craft beer and how that hurts them. And I'm like, well, why don't we like reach out to local craft brewers, the Wheeling Alers and the Wheeling Brewing Company and brew keepers, and have an event where it's like beer school, and you learn about the value of craft beer and what that means for like their own like economy, and what that means for the local economy, and what it means when a craft brewer gets bought out by Anheuser-Busch or some other big company. So because I think there's just that opportunity. You can't do that sitting in a bigger city.
No,
like,
you're absolutely right.
Well, I mean, you can do it, but is it going to be successful?
The minutia.
Yeah, and then you're competing against like really like extravagantly cool things that are going on in a big city because they can get
like
bigger entertainment. Like Anheuser-Busch. So
you
have that opportunity in Wheeling to create your own fun, and it's very attainable and can be very well received if you do it right.
Well, and I guess to the extent that if people think that there aren't things to do in Wheeling, and maybe there aren't as many things, like you said, that there are in big cities, that leaves a lot of room for new events like that, where people are looking for things to do, that you can have an audience that aren't distracted. And what I'm really excited about is the collaborations between different groups, and something that I've wanted to do for a long time is to combine these different people that are doing interesting things, and hopefully by having the podcast where we're giving exposure to what people are doing, and maybe bringing it to a wider audience. But so your idea of having a night where they discuss craft brewing and the different issues around it, but if you could combine that with music afterwards, so then a band has a place to play, and people that are interested in craft beers are a lot of times the same people that are interested in original music, and if they're not, maybe by the end of the night they will be.
And then everyone has to eat, so throw in some local food there, and you have like this great thing of multiple people collaborating to.
Exactly.
And it breaks that problem that we just mentioned about 5 minutes ago. People not wanting to get out of their comfort zone. They're still in their comfort zone, but they're experiencing something that like I don't really like seeing live music,
But I'm interested in craft beers.
Yeah, so I'm here now. I didn't know this chef made this, and this band sounds pretty good actually.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, and I didn't mean to like be disrespectful by any means by people who serve on multiple boards, because it is what it is. Like that's not
totally
that. But I mean, what I think I was trying to say was have a cause and be dedicated to it. And I think it's really easy to get excited and see all the opportunity in Wheeling and say, I want to be in the beer community, and I really want to focus on local food, and I really want to care about the art scene and all of these other things. And you get so excited that you can't really do anything that makes a difference. But if you focus on that one thing where your skills align with what that group of people need, and then you reach out to the other people who are trying to do the same things, and you can collaborate, that's where magic happens, because you don't have to be a jack of all trades. You can rely on the people that are experts at what they're doing and make amazing things happen.
Well, absolutely. I know for myself, I definitely sometimes spread myself too thin, and I get excited about a bunch of different things, and I kind of tend to go really deep on something when I'm excited about it. But I am aware that while I'm really focusing on one thing that I'm passionate about, there's other things that I'm neglecting, and so I can respect that you've, at a young age, you realize that I'm going to pick a couple things that I'm really interested in and put everything I have into those things. And I think that's important. The other thing that I think is really important is there's a lot of things that are, it's good to talk about things, but at some point it has to turn into an action.
Absolutely.
And that's probably my biggest gripe in life in general. Maybe not my biggest one, but it's definitely one of my pet peeves is too much talk, not enough action. And so I'm really happy to see that there are people with action that are accomplishing things.
That was one of the biggest reasons between that and your ideas. why I really lobbied for you to join OV Connect, because OV Connect is a successful group, but they kind of do the same things, and they're not dogging on them. They works with it, but if you want to expand it, if you need to expand your group, if you need to expand it, you need to have new ideas, and I don't have any. So, well, that goes to Alex. And you've already brought some great
I think that's probably, I mean, not to like boast myself, but I think that's the one thing that I can bring to the table that I will say. I'm organized and I'm action oriented. I have some good ideas, but I'm also willing to listen to others, and whatever the consensus is, like this is the good idea, we can find a way together to make it happen. I know I personally, and I think a lot of other people can agree, like it gets really monotonous to sit around and just talk about ideas, talk. Like at some point, you know, we can talk about the most grand idea for like a huge festival, but maybe what's most attainable right now is to have a happy hour on a Thursday night and make that the best happy hour that you'll go to all month.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
Channeling your resources where it's going to make an impact rather than talking about this great idea that's never going to come to fruition in the way that you wanted to.
That is the biggest asset in any group, whether it be, you know, in my experiences with you, with WHIP and OV Connect, is that, you know, you're talking with like-minded individuals in a board, so everyone's kind of like, oh yeah, you need to do this, you can do this, and then, you know, after the meeting when people start putting their, you know, whatever.
Well, I guess because we deal with this in the film business, everything's great when it's a discussion and it's an idea, but putting it into action, it becomes work. And when you really start to think about all the steps it's going to take to accomplish it, it's a lot. And so that's where people like you that are proactive, because any project, the bigger the project, the more important it is to have a person. I always call them the locomotive. That's the person that keeps it going forward, that's reminding everybody, hey, we need to keep on point and keep moving forward. And there are some people that are naturally good at that, that they're the ones that poke everybody every now and then and say, hey, don't remember, we have this project. And there are other people that
create the great ideas.
They create the great ideas. They're the people that maybe they don't necessarily come up with the great ideas, but they like being in a supportive role. Some people like leadership. Other people hate it. My sister-in-law has a great quote that she doesn't want to be involved in any group unless she's in charge. And I'm kind of the same way. I don't mind being responsible. I don't do well with having to follow other people, although I'm working on it. But there are other people that they're much more comfortable if they don't have to be the one that's ultimately responsible and just pitching in a big way. And so it definitely takes all types of people to get things done, and the bigger the project.
That's the biggest thing for me, because I'm literally in the same boat. I prefer to lead because I've realized that I don't communicate well, so it's easier for me just to do stuff because I don't. You guys are listening to me on the podcast. I don't know. I can't even finish the sentence. But like working with people with Alex, it's been nice because, you know, I can just, not, for lack of a better, just take orders and get stuff done. I don't want to say it like derogatorily or negatively, because it's nice to be like, you know, I'm an absolute mess and I can't organize anything, and then there's someone like, you need to get X, Y, and Z done, and it's like, oh shit, you're right. I completely forgot about everything that I said I would do, because that's how my brain works.
Right. Well, yeah, it's. I know for me, with the films, I got a good crew of guys, and when I take the back seat on the project, I know it's still going to get done because they have that same drive that I do to see it to completion, and that's nice to have more than one person involved in a project that when they say that they're going to follow through with something, and so that makes you a great asset to the group.
Yeah.
And,
I think that's when you know you have a good team, when you don't have to keep checking in. Like, it's good to check in, like that's fine, but when a group can function independently of you, but they benefit from you, that's good leadership. You're not a good leader if you're withholding information and you can't delegate. I think that's like a huge part of leadership, is being able to delegate, and then the team being able to function from there. And I think you and I are really similar in that way, Will, that you kind of like were dogging on yourself, but I think that both of us have kind of that ability to be there, to embrace the good ideas, but to have that realistic grounding in saying like X, Y, and Z needs to get done.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I follow a lot better than you do, but I think at a basic level, we kind of have that same understanding, which is why I think you and I work so well together, because we know, like, you know, we can sit around and talk about this forever, but what's the bare bones? What do we need to get done before this next part can happen?
Now, I think it comes a lot more natural to you. Because you're just a lot more organized as a human being. It was forced on me because I put so much stuff on my plate that I literally, without wanting to see anything fail, had to figure out a way to
sometimes you gotta let things go.
That was just
So let's talk about Wheeling a little bit. The last Young Preservationist meeting I was at, a thought occurred to me, couple things, but they were talking about different models of other cities that have had success, and I kind of thought, man, it's good to look at what other cities are doing, but it's also good to look at what Wheeling has that's unique, and how we can capitalize on those. And one of the big topics has always been the waterfront, and it kind of occurred to me that in other cities where they have a river that runs through it, they're able to really make that a center attraction.
Yeah. We literally ignore it in this town.
Well, but when I thought about that further, I realized that we have these historic buildings in North Wheeling that they're in a weird position to the river where you can't. They're too close for you to build anything behind them, and you don't want to tear them down to put in something that faces the river. We do have Heritage Port, which is great. I guess, we could move Lowe's. But
We're never moving Lowe's. That is a staple.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So our access to the river was determined a long time ago when they put the train tracks in, and then buildings facing the other direction. And I think in other cities that I've been in where they do have a river that runs through it, that is a Brad Pitt.
He snuck that in
I did.
On purpose, you dog.
A la Brad Pitt. He owes me. But so, like in Cincinnati, what they ended up doing is using river boats. So you only have a couple access points.
I mean, honestly, not to cut you off, but that's the same thing. That's the whole reason the Heritage Port was put in, because they took out the wharf parking garage, and the wharf parking garage's lower floor was designed so they could park river boats in.
Yeah.
So when they took it out, they said we need to have the similar thing for the Stern Wheel Festival and those things that come in. But Cincinnati's capitalized on it so much more than we have. Not that I should say capitalizing. I mean, that's their niche. I don't think we should shadow them, like you said earlier.
Right.
What's unique for us.
And then so the other thought that came out of that was the idea that for the longest time I thought maybe one thing would happen in Wheeling that would maybe put it on the map, that it would be known for, that would draw people in, the way the band Nirvana really brought a lot of attention to Seattle, and then all of a sudden people were moving there.
Yeah. Like Pearl Jam. Throwing on the bus. They're on blast Pearl Jam.
But in talking to Jake Dougherty after
Dougherty. I purposely didn't correct you last time we were on the podcast because I wanted it to eat a Jake. And, it's spelled like Dougherty or Dougherty, but it's pronounced Dougherty.
I'm too old to change.
That's fine.
It's Dougherty.
That's fine. Jacques.
I'll call him Jacques Dougherty.
Dougherty.
But the idea that maybe what will put Wheeling on the map, or that will make people think that it's special, is the fact that it's so eclectic. That somebody that comes into town for the weekend or moves into town, they'll realize that I'm interested in 5 different things, and there's people doing all 5 of those things here. So rather than people moving in for one sole purpose, whether it be the art scene or the film scene or the music scene, that they just move in and they realize, man, this is a place where I can explore all of my interests, because it's very diverse and eclectic. And
yeah, and I think that goes back to just who we are as a community. It's not necessarily the scenes that we've developed, but the people that are in those scenes. You can come to the Preservationist community and we'll welcome you with open arms. You can go to an arts event and you'll meet a new friend there.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we're the friendly city, and I think that that's what makes us unique, not necessarily the scenes that we have, but when you're there and when you're in it, you're going to meet someone new and you're going to make a new connection in a really genuine way. And I don't think that that's something that is easy to come by in other places.
So I guess one of the criticisms I've heard of the Young Preservationists was that it was more of a social group. But after attending a couple meetings, I don't think that that's necessarily true. But I also think to the extent that it is, it's not a bad thing either.
Yeah.
If people who aren't, I came to the meeting, preservation, I think is a great idea. It's not something that I can say is a passion of mine. I mostly do come for the social aspect, and I'm more than willing to help people achieve their goal. But I think that should not be minimized as an important aspect of the different groups in town. That ultimately the work gets done, and if you're there for social reasons or because you have a passion for the buildings, either way, you're getting something out of it, and the city and the cause is getting something out of it. So I'm less concerned as to why people are there.
Yeah. I think it all comes back to the same thing. It's all about community building.
Yeah.
Preserving the buildings are great, but if you don't have people that care about living downtown or being downtown, then they're not going to get to experience all that building has to offer. So I think it's a valid criticism that we're not, hands-on preservation as some preservation groups are. But I think what we offer, as I said before, is we're building a community. We're getting people excited about Wheeling, and that's just as important.
Right.
That's an important piece of the puzzle as any other piece, because people need to want to be there. And that was a big thing that we talked about, not we, but there was a speaker last night at the Friends of Wheeling dinner. His name's Ben Muldrow, and he said you have to think about how the people act and then build around that. And I think that we have just as big of an emphasis on people as we do about the buildings, and I think that that's very important.
I think it may be even more important at this stage of where Wheeling is now, where it's in the process of, I think it's burgeoning, and it's things are starting to happen, that getting the people together is maybe as much as preserving the buildings is very important. I think getting the people together for the good of the city exceeds that by a lot.
Yeah.
I was talking to Dom Cerrone, who runs Good Mansion. If you guys haven't, I'll do a plug for Dom. If you haven't been there,
please do.
If you haven't gone to Good Mansion, I don't know what you're doing, because it's the best.
I don't know what the hell you're doing.
It's the best wine selection in the state of West Virginia. Olivier makes the best pastries, and
the cheese.
The cheese, yeah, right. It's my Saturday is me
Jesus.
waking up. I do video games for about an hour, and then I stroll up to Good Mansion. I get an espresso and a croissant. That's my Saturdays.
That's a really classy Saturday.
That's a very classy,
High class.
Yeah, right.
That's a Slumdog Thousandaire Saturday
That's
morning.
right. I'm just living off of that rent. But I was talking to him, and in regards to, because he's Good Mansion Wines is in the LS Good Mansion, and he said the reason that we have, and this is him, not a quoting but paraphrasing, the reason we have succeeded as a wine store and was able to expand into a deli, into a cheese, monger, into the whole thing it is now, is because of the mansion itself. If I was just in a storefront in the Elm Grove Terrace or on the Highlands, it would have been another wine store to go to. But because it's in the heart of this historic district in East Wheeling, because it's in an historic building that's absolutely beautiful, people came there because it was different, because it was beautiful, because it was something to see. It was more. You weren't just buying wine; you were going to Good Mansion to buy wine. That goes back to what we're saying about preservation. You're not saving the building because the building is beautiful. You can't save the building because it's just beautiful. You need to use the building to save it. You can't save something if it's worthless.
Right. Well, and I think that is so. It's not just a trip to the store to pick something up, but it's kind of an adventure, and it's a destination in itself.
Absolutely.
When do you ever go make a cheese tray and say, I went to Kroger today, and I went to the dairy section, and I got this Kroger brand habanero cheese,
right.
And then I waltzed over to the wine section and got a $5 twist-off wine. It's so much more exciting of a story when you go somewhere that has a story.
Right.
There's nothing exciting about a Kroger. I'm sorry, Kroger. I
Sorry,
I shop
Kroger.
there every week, but it's not that great.
It does take something that's a chore and makes it into a pleasurable experience.
Yeah.
And that's really important for our community to have things like that, because
Right.
if you can find ways to take the everyday things in life and make them pleasurable experiences, that's what makes a city desirable to live in.
Yeah.
And I think that's the things that I see are happening more and more in Wheeling. I still would like to see us have the kind of coffee shop where you can show up there and sit on the couch and have a conversation like we're having now any night of the week.
Yeah,
and,
wouldn't that be nice?
And I really believe that it's going to happen. The right person will come along. Talking
Absolutely.
to some of the bridge and tunnel guys, I know that they're hoping to have a space where regularly that we can have live local
You know, it's
music.
funny. The reason that we had to delay this podcast because I was talking to Josh Taylor, and the reason we were talking for so long is for that very reason. Yeah, it's a true story.
Well, me and Michael were talking about that earlier today on.
Well, don't believe anything Mike says.
Wow.
I'm joking. He's a very good person.
He is, and but we kind of mentioned that when the time is right, it'll happen. And I think that's probably the biggest mistake that people make is. I always say that everything's my most important thing and the biggest mistake, and but I think change on the scale that people are expecting and willing is the kind of thing that takes a long time. I met an interesting man, and I can't remember his name, at one of the Crofts parties, Andrew and Patricia Crofts parties, maybe 3 years ago, and I said, man, I think this is going to be my year. And he goes, well, this is going to be a good year for you, but he says your best year is 5-6 years ahead. And he was kind of a guru type that read my soul, or maybe at least feel that way. And I'm like, really? Because I feel like this is going to be my big year. But he was right. It's every year things seem to be getting better, and same for Wheeling. I think our best years are ahead of us, and maybe even, I think things will get better every year. But we're far from our peak.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. You brought up, you said, like having a coffee shop you can go to and talk to, have conversations like this, and going back to Good Mansion, not to keep circling around to the
How
same
much
thing.
are they paying you?
Are you being endorsed? I think you need to disclose that.
I
I think
don't
we need
think
to get our endorsements.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to bring that up because it's not your business. I told you I need money. No, I'm just
Panera,
joking.
Alex Panera.
That's bad.
We just lost half the people. Just turned off. People just switched to another podcast. Sorry.
And I think, I don't know if you know Dom. Dom's a very smart man. He's
Never met him.
a professional engineer, and that's not like I don't know if outside the engineering world. I don't know if you understand what that means. It means you have to pass a bunch of tests, and you're it's a state recognized thing. Being a professional engineer, it's a very difficult thing to come by. He runs his own engineering firm as well as doing Good Mansion, and I don't know if he was accidental or if it was planned, but you can buy wine off the internet. You can buy pretty much anything off the internet. That's why the retail market right now is tanking, because why would you go to JCPenney's? I don't go to JCPenney's because I can buy stuff off Amazon for cheaper, and it's easier. It shows up at my door. I don't have to do anything. Same with most anything else. I'd rather buy, I wouldn't go to CA House to buy a guitar. I'll buy something off of Sweetwater or StuMac.com. But I walk to Good Mansion every week because I enjoy walking in there and seeing the building and seeing the environment and interacting with the people in this awesome and niche way. I don't know if it was as planned or not, but that's where retail is going in the future. Retail is not going to be the Kroger or the Giant Eagle where you just walk in there and you get your stuff and you leave and it's very generic. You're going to want to go there because you can get Amazon Pantry to get everything else. If you want fresh vegetables, you'll get a Grow High Valley and get the CSA. There's not going to be a reason to go and just to get food, because it's already easier to get. Always easier to get food.
To make these things more of an experience,
Right.
To make it worth your while to, as opposed to ordering it online, there's going to be a greater
draw.
reason.
And that goes back to what you're saying. Wheeling doesn't have that one thing that pulls you in. It's just when you're here, 4 or 5 things are going on. I think that builds into it. There's the Ogleby, there's downtown, there's the waterfront, there's things like Good Mansion happening. There's
Waterfront Wednesdays, and what's the
Whisk,
Tuesday?
there's I'm sorry. cut you off.
There's Yeah, one of the things that Howard was talking about is Waterfront Wednesdays in the summer, and then there's they have the movie night on Fridays, and once a month outside of Market Vines they have the concert. There's third Fridays, there's first Fridays.
A lot of Fridays.
What are your some of the favorite things you like to do in Wheeling?
Definitely first and third Fridays are my favorite things. I love being, I like when they bring it outdoors. I think anything outdoors is my favorite. And then I really like, they didn't do Wingfest this year, did they? I went to Wingfest once. I think my first summer I was back here. And that was like my favorite thing ever. Cause I just love it.
I don't know if they did it this year or not, but I do know that every year they've done it. I haven't found out about it to the day of or the day after.
Yeah, and that just goes back to marketing. I'll help you with your marketing. I love wings, so it's really easy for me to get behind that. So I love Wingfest and just anything. The arts and cultural fest, like that was an amazing event to attend last year. So
right,
I think that your talents are very much needed because I forget who I was talking about the other day, but they said that something that they traditionally like to do had happened, and it was over before they found out about it, and. You know, as much as Facebook is a good way to get things out there, things do tend to get lost in the minutia of everything.
Absolutely.
And finding more effective ways of getting the word out before these things happen.
Yeah, and I want to say it's not really a problem, but I think what keeps certain events from not being as widespread as they should be, because who doesn't want to go to Wingfest or who doesn't want to go to OV Connect's Happy Hour that we just launched? I think the barrier is just everyone is planning this in their free time. We all have 9-to-5 jobs. We all have things that pay the bills.
Right.
So, you know, those little details that would really take an event to the next level kind of fall through the cracks, and not by anyone's fault, because I'm not going to blame someone for, you know, not making a Facebook event or not doing something because it's not your full-time job, and that's fine. But I think just as we move on, just having more people at the table to, you know, be able to step up to the plate and it not falling on the shoulders of a few people, that's what'll eventually make it more successful.
That is a really good point to not be too critical of the people that are doing things.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be critical about it at all. I think it's I think anyone who is involved in any capacity kind of should at least be aware of what you could be doing better, and I think that that's a valid thing. We're all busy.
Right.
No one would argue with that. So.
And generally the biggest critics are the ones that stand on the sidelines and watch.
That's the truth.
And there's even a saying that when I joined the fire department, and it applies to civic organizations, that 10% of the people do 90% of the work, and the 90% that don't, just their job is to criticize the people that do. That's not always the case, but it is. So if you're out there listening,
get involved.
Get
that's
involved.
all.
Get involved.
Get involved and give a shit. That's all.
That's right.
Seriously, though.
And if you think that things could be done better, then yeah,
do it.
Participate and cut the people some slack and realize that they have lives and jobs and that that they're doing the best they can with the amount of time they have.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to look at the state of Wheeling or the Ohio Valley or anything and see and point out what's wrong.
Yeah.
It takes really special people to say, like, I see a gap. How can I fill that? Or how can I use my skills to make this better? And I think there are a lot of people like that in Wheeling, and I think that's why we are so successful, and I think that's why we're going to continue to be successful as people come back, because we have a great group of people that give a shit.
Yeah. Well, I think the trend in society in general is kind of to shit all over everything, but I think that locally, at least among the people that I enjoy being around, that's kind of an unacceptable attitude to have.
In the last 5 years, it's really lessened down. I mean, it went from being, I mean, honestly, I think the last time we talked on this podcast, I was talking about how easy it was for everyone to just shit on it because it was what you did. And then, I mean, now when someone says something negative about Wheeling, it's almost like you get defensive. You're like, well, hold on now, Chief.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of cool things going on. I get it. You wanted to get your joke in, but seriously, though.
It's definitely not cool, I think, at least among the people that I associate with, to really shit on Wheeling too much.
It's absolutely not anymore.
It's one thing to have a critical opinion of things, but that's not the same. That's because you care about the place and you want to see things better. That's different than just starting out with a negative attitude and not really looking for a positive, or there's no constructive point to it. It is definitely one of the most unique things that I never expected to see around here. The amount of positivity and cooperation and people willing to share what they have with other people. I know that for the podcast, Josh was very adamant that he would help the podcast, and that the podcast would help with the show and with the album, and he was right. The weekend that we released his podcast, the numbers jumped by double, and that has a lot to do with the fact that he really stepped out and promoted it, and I promoted the show, and I think the show would have been successful without me, but it was great that we were able to work together to help each other. And I always say that I really don't know what person or what thing is going to help the podcast or the filmmaking or whatever thing that I'm interested in. But be nice to people, be grateful, and be open to ideas, because you never know when someone will come out of left field that will give you the boost to the next level. And I think that's the spirit that I think most people agree with me naturally around here, and I think that's why we've had the growth that we've had in the last couple of years. So, to change the topic a little bit, you're a Bobcat.
I'm a Bobcat, yes.
Where did you stay in Athens? We're going to talk OU for a minute.
I'll just be here and not understanding what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, well, my story's not one of a traditional Bobcat. I actually went to Ohio University Eastern.
Same here.
Yeah, I went there for 2 years. So by the time I had transferred down to the main campus, I didn't have to live in the dorm. So I do feel a little bit like jaded because I never got the dorm room experience, because I do think you get to meet so many new people and like experience a lot of life through those 2 years, which I didn't get, but I got a lot of other experiences, so it's okay. But I moved down there. It was with Sarah and another one of my friends who had went to OU for a couple of years. His name's Jordan. And we lived in a little apartment in Graceland. It was by Hungry Howie's on Schaefer Street.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we lived there for 2 years. And then I moved, I don't even remember the name of the street, but you go to the end of Court Street, hang a left, and you just go up.
Yeah.
It was a laundromat, and I lived on the second floor of the laundromat a few blocks up.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I can't remember the name of the street either.
It was called Dirty Deeds when we lived there, but I'm sure it was something else. So the 3 years I lived there, that's where I lived. And
did you spend any time at Donkey Coffee?
I did, yes.
It was not there when I was in school, because one of my friends in school was Chris, and he started the coffee shop after we all graduated. My friend Brian, he works at the radio station, and it's funny the number of people that I was friends with that stayed in town. But I hadn't been back for a long time, and I had heard how much it changed. And I took a trip with Tom Fury, one of my buddies. We took a little motorcycle trip, and I was a little bit nervous because I had heard that Athens had really changed, but it really hadn't. I mean, there were some new businesses and some new buildings.
The attitude was the same.
The atmosphere was the same.
Yeah, and I really thank my time in Athens, or I attribute my time in Athens to the appreciation I have now for local and for community, because prior to going to Athens, when I lived here for 2 years, I didn't care about supporting local businesses. I didn't really think about the difference between going to the Alpha for dinner and going to Applebee's for dinner. It just wasn't something that ever crossed my mind.
Right.
But I moved there, and they have things like the 30-mile meal, where they'll have specific menu items that are made with food created right in Athens.
Right.
And they have a phenomenal farmers market, and they have places like Donkey Coffee that promote their sustainability, and
Casa Nueva.
Yeah, Casa Nueva, where it's all employee owned.
Yeah.
Like, just opened my mind to things I would have never thought about had I not experienced that. And I could have gotten that in any other little hippie college town. But I think going to college to somewhere like that really does open your mind, so when you can come back, you can appreciate what you have. I didn't realize when I came back, like, all these great places existed where I can have that same feel local and in my hometown.
And I would say that I agree that the feel around here is as close to the feeling that I had in Athens. And part of
part of what made Athens special, I think, was the fact that there's nothing close by. So you're kind of stuck in town. Even if you have a car, it's not like you can take off when you're bored for the weekend.
They have the bike path that go, like, if you need to go to Walmart, you can bike 1.5 miles and go there, and people do it, and I think it's awesome.
And we in other campuses, like I think about Ohio State, you can really commute in every day and not be involved in campus life at all. But if you're going to OU, you're pretty much going to get involved in town because there's nowhere else to be, and we're all squeezed in together. And I think that is what helps build that sense of community, because you don't have people that are kind of coming and going all the time.
Yeah. And I just think where Athens is situated, it is in such a poor county and such a county that's dealing with a lot of stuff. It's one of the poorest counties in the state. And I think what the university does a good job of, in at least some of its programs, from what I've seen, is it integrates the students into the life of the community. You don't just go to college and get your degree and go home. You really learn a lot. I know my sister, she just graduated over this past weekend with a degree in nursing, and she did rotations and clinicals in the hospitals, and she saw a lot that was going on with, like, babies being born addicted to drugs, and she's dealt with the senior population and learned a lot through that. One of my friends, Jalen, had an internship that required her to have internships through the summer, and one of her internships she spent at a local nonprofit called Live Healthy Appalachia, and it was really focused on educating people on food and healthy eating and sustainability and things like that. So I think there's a lot of programs built in that teach people to care about where you're living. So hopefully that transcends your time in Athens.
I think it does.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I went to WVU, and the only thing, it's funny because, like, you know, some of the things you mentioned were very similar to my experiences. Like coming back to Wheeling from WVU, I was looking for a coffee shop like the one, like the Blue Moose, like my favorite bar, McLafferty's. I was looking for similar experiences because it has the same vibe, but at the same time, that stuff didn't happen there. The only thing we cared about was just, not to dog on WVU, but the only thing we cared about was, you know, football and drinking, and in my case, graduating without the least amount of effort and still graduating. I feel like I attained, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say that studying and my education was pretty far down on the list of what I was concerned about when I was in college, which I kind of regret, but I kind of don't mind. It served me well, but definitely can get distracted in Athens away from education, because it's a lot of fun things. I also like the fact that it's out in the country, and I guess that kind of brings me back to Wheeling. One of the things that I like is that we're only minutes away from being in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
I live in the country, and it's 12 minutes from here, and as someone I love, of course, people know me, they know that I love motorcycles, and I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. In fact, if I needed one reason to stay here, it's the fact that it's one of the most beautiful places to just get out and ride around. And we do have that diversity of a good mix of outdoors and city life, and interesting people doing interesting things. And
no, it's yeah. I mean, honestly, even for me living in downtown, I can get on my bike and be on the bike trail.
Yeah.
And be at the locks and dams in 30 minutes. You know.
Right.
I could be in as far as I can get as Elm Grove in 15. Yeah.
Because I think probably people that live in bigger cities, I know when I lived in Dayton, there'd be months where you would never get out of town. Maybe most of the year where you would pretty much be in the city, and I think that takes a toll on you, and you don't realize it until you get away. I like the fact that you rarely have to sit through a traffic light once before you move on. Whenever I go to a bigger city and you get into that train where the light turns red and green 4 or 5 times before you get through it.
Right.
I don't know how people live like that, but luckily we don't here.
Yeah, no, it's a blessing for sure.
It is.
I went to the Pens game last night, and it's normally an hour drive. It was 2 hours in. I was in traffic from the second you get on the Parkway to PPG Paints Arena.
Yeah.
So that was another hour. And then leaving, trying to get out of downtown Pittsburgh, it was 45 minutes leaving from the parking garage to get on the highway.
Yeah.
Just, that 1 mile. It was just absolutely numbing.
I'm not built for
Actually,
that.
it was funny because I was with Robbie Kettlewell and we were listening to your podcast. That's what we were killing the time.
Which episode?
I caught him up on the one that we did just because, he needed to understand the standard that we were setting for him.
What he's getting himself into.
Yeah, and then we jumped right into the Fancy Pants one.
So is there anything that you would like to see happen in the future, a big goal that you have, that maybe your biggest hope and dream for the Ohio Valley?
Oh, my biggest hope and dream? Oh, I don't know. I don't think I have a big hope or a dream. I just hope that we continue on a path forward. We continue to have good people stay here, and the people that are already here that have potential step up and fulfill that potential and just continue to do good things. I don't know if it's because my sister graduated this past week and she's moving back that I have all of these ideas of just involvement and commitment to community on my mind, but I think so much to where I was a year and a half ago when I first moved back. I said this wasn't my first choice earlier in the podcast, so I wasn't particularly happy about it, and I remember that I was just kind of jaded for a while and a little bit disgruntled, and it was obvious to people who met me. So I would hope that anyone that listens to this podcast, or maybe if you're listening and you know someone who's moved back and might be in that same space, kind of disappointed that they're here and that this isn't their first option, just encourage them. It's okay to be upset, but channel that into something good. Where we're at, it's as good as you make it.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, and I also think that what you do in your personal time can really be fulfilling if you do move back in your first job. I told you my first job wasn't my dream job. I really didn't like it at all. But what gave me fulfillment and purpose was what I did for community. And for people that are moving back and they're not in their ideal job and they're really disappointed where they're at, don't blame it on Wheeling. Don't blame it on anyone. Just channel that and be a better employee, because I think employers recognize people who care and people who are dedicated. And it doesn't matter if you're in Wheeling, if you're in any big city, employers recognize people who give a shit.
Right.
And I think that if you can put your ego aside and just put your nose down to the ground and do the best work that you can, it'll pay off in all areas of your life, your career, your personal life, and anything else. So I don't know. That's my big message, I think. I just want people to give a shit.
I couldn't agree more. I think that your experience in Wheeling and your life in general is what you make of it. And if you sit around and bemoan it, then it's not going to be very good. And if you look for the positives and you highlight those, you're gonna have a good time no matter where you are and what you're doing. And as far as your career, I think anything that you do, if you take pride in your work, even if you're at the lowest level, and it's maybe not something that you want to do, that's a good skill to train yourself to have pride in your work. If you're in high school and you get a job at a fast food restaurant flipping hamburgers, but if you approach it with, you're going to be the best person at flipping hamburgers, that mindset will help you when you do get the job that you want. I think what happens a lot of times is people say, well, this is not really the job I want, so I'm going to slack my way through it. Guess what? When you get the job you want, you're a slacker. And you're probably not going to do well in that job. Whereas if you can kick ass at a job that you don't want, when you get the job that you do want, you're going to be exceptional. And I think that's a good message for the young people out there, of which you guys are.
It was funny that you listened to you talk, Alex, because I don't think we actually had this conversation before, quote unquote. We had very similar post-college lives, but I just never really verbalized it because I'm not as,
Eloquent.
obviously if you're listening, I'm not as eloquent as you. I need help by James.
My new co-host.
It was the same thing with me when I took my job where I work. I was underground as a coal miner, and I definitely have 2 degrees in engineering. It's not where I was thinking I was going to be, but I said, you know what, I'm here. I'm not going to let, I'm not going to let be shitty about it. I'm not going to let a hill jack outwork me.
Right.
And so I just, I put my nose down there, and I definitely, those guys are
Hard workers.
A lot of hard workers, and they are incredible. They're smarter than me. I mean, I was just a stupid college kid, and they made me know that. But
you had to have that experience to learn that.
Worked as hard as I could, and that's all they asked. That's all anyone asks. If you work as hard as you can, if you give a shit, like you said, Alex, it goes so much farther than any door that you could be opened with a good degree.
Right.
Degrees don't open many doors as people think they do.
Yeah, I want more people to realize that, because
Right.
you come out of college on a high horse. You think you know it all, and you really
Absolutely.
don't. And
Yeah.
I just want more people. I think I'm lucky to have realized that a little bit sooner. And I don't know, maybe I'll listen back on this in like a year and think like, Alex, you're such a douchebag. Why would you say anything that you're saying right now? You still don't know anything. And I'll admit that I don't have it all figured out now. But I just think the more humble you can be and try to get what you can from any situation you put yourself in, you'll be in a better position than you are when you walk into something and act like you have it figured out, or
Right.
think that you have it figured out, because
So-
we're all just winging it.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I am 26. I'm going to be 27 next month.
And you are
28.
28. So this is what kind of blows me away, because when I was in my 20s, even 28, I was a smack off. I mean, I literally did not have anywhere near the civic commitment that you guys have, or even the knowledge or desire to work hard towards anything.
Millennials, baby.
Yeah, I think millennials take a lot of crap, but really,
Snowflakes are great at work ethic.
but it is. I mean, in my 20s, I mostly, had a job and I played some music, but I spent a lot of time just hanging out, and the thing that I'm realizing now, that working on a project like the Young Preservationist, spending time with people that you enjoy, but working towards a project versus just getting a drink at a bar, which there's nothing wrong with that. You need to wind down and relax, but there's something about the relationships that you make with people when you're working towards a common goal, especially something that you're passionate about, that I think surpasses just a casual friendship. I know for me, working with on the movies, you really bond with the people, and it accelerates your friendship, and it's a good way to spend your time. And as much as the different things that I enjoy doing can be hard work at times, and, beyond just the reward of accomplishing a goal and producing a film or having a podcast done or whatever, I think sharing these intense experiences and feel like you're accomplishing something with people that you care about.
Right.
That's the reason why I'm involved in the different things that I am, and I'm glad to see that people in their 20s have discovered that. I wish I would have. You might be talking to President Wodarcyk right now. Had
I wouldn't have voted for you.
very few people would have.
A quick question, Alex. Growing up through high school, like I said, I feel like we share a lot of similar traits in this regard. And for me, the reason that I am the way that I am today is mostly because of my father.
For Cal Cunningham, I'm going to take the Cal Cunningham Memorial
Urination,
restroom break,
yeah.
urination break during the middle of the podcast. But you guys continue.
No, that's
Okay.
absolutely fine. This is part of it. This is part of it now. Yeah. When I was going through high school, my dad pulled me out of days at high school. Like, he had called up the principal and said he's not coming in today because my dad ran his own contracting company, and he's like, I have to get a job done and I need him there. And so that I'll be working there, and my dad is a very small company. He only had like 4 or 5 employees, and they would, when my dad wasn't looking, they would dog on me because I was the boss's son, the owner's son. And so I had to work twice as hard with very little experience. I took a Christmas break in Mayagüez, West Puerto Rico, to work to assemble a fish tuna canning line. We worked all over the place. I had to skip baseball practice one day to work on something. And without thinking, I hated doing all that shit, but now it just was always, I don't know. It's ingrained in my head through, working at shitty factories. I don't know if what how you got your work ethic.
I think I had the perfect combination of family. I by no means lived my family never made me work. I lived a pretty pampered life. But looking at the two sides of my family, my dad's side, all of my aunts and uncles, including my dad, are college educated, and they are all business majors. So they're very business minded. They're very focused. They're very organized, and they're very driven people. On my mom's side of the family, my mom is a manager of Medicare at the health plan.
Oh, wow.
She doesn't have a college degree, and so she's had the ability to climb in her role without any college education, just on sheer willingness to learn and a drive to work hard.
Yeah.
And all of my uncles, she's the only woman, all of my uncles, they are all coal miners or steel workers. So
Right.
they're all very blue-collar, hard-working, down-to-earth people. And
Absolutely.
and I attribute a lot of that. It's a nice combination of the both. I feel like I kind of have the business mind of my dad's side, but the hardworking aspect from my mom's side. And I attribute so much that I cannot not mention this. My grandmother on my mom's side, Grandma Rita, she is a badass, like the original feminist. She probably wouldn't even identify as a feminist if I had asked her, but she has taken care of home. She's raised children, and doing so while working in a factory. Like, she worked at Wheeling Stamping when it was still
really?
in business.
Holy
Yeah.
crap.
She babysat me when I was a kid, and she would work during the day. She would watch my sister and I, and then in the evening she would go and do home health, sitting through the night, just
Yeah.
basic healthcare stuff. So she would never sleep, and she would just watch us. And she worked at Respecs as in the meat department, cutting meat. She's just so amazing in every single way. And I think I look to her so much as a role model, because I can't talk about her without getting upset, because I just look up to her so much, and I respect her so much. And everything I do, I just kind of do it. I do it for a lot of reasons, but I always want to make her proud, and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's funny you bring that up, because I never even thought about this before this second at all, but both of my grandmothers, my father's mom and my mother's mother, my dad's mom ran a still operating tool store. It's now a furniture store called Alco's in Fallensby, where she, without really any formal education, she went to business school later. But
Fallensby, what's that? Is it some kind of new animal?
it's blue collar. It's grit. But she ran the business side of things, most of her over adult life until she ended up passing away. And then my mom's parents, my grandfather was an insurance salesman, and he hated it. Well, I don't know if he hated it or not, but he needed a change. This is way before I was born. And he decided that he was going to buy a gas station. It was Sunset Drive, Sunoco, which is still there. They still use cars out of it now. He ran it, but my grandmother did all the business work for it. And even after they sold off, and he had passed away early in my life, and she passed away a lot later, her work ethic was admirable. And I think that trickles down to my parents, obviously, and then to us. I think having all of that multi-generational work ethic is it's hard to break away from that.
Yeah, I think there's so much old money in Wheeling that you hear a lot about, all these booming business tycoons that made a ton of money and were super successful, but there are just as many interesting stories about the hard-working blue collar.
Absolutely.
And that's what's so cool about Wheeling, because it's so diverse in its history, and it continues to be diverse now. And I don't know, that's just what gets me going. I don't know, it's all great.
There is a lot of great Wheeling history and West Virginia history and even local Ohio history.
You need I mentioned this last time. You need to get Sorrel on here, but another person, right?
You can get Sorrel on here.
Yeah.
Another person you get on here is Hal Gorby.
Oh, that's what I was thinking too. Before you said Sorrel, I was like, Hal Gorby.
Kristen works out at my gym, and every time I see her out there, I'm like, I know Hal comes into town a lot, and I need to reach out to him.
I've gone to the last two People's Universities, mostly because he was the one putting on the presentations. But this semester, quote unquote, they're focusing on World War I, because it's 100 years since more or less beginning of it for us, and how that affected Wheeling and how that affected West Virginia, and his take on things is very interesting, and because he's obviously historically correct, but like this one you're talking about, the immigrant populations, and in 1914 we had a pro-Germany rally in Wheeling
That's funny.
And that was just blowing me away that people were raising money to give to the German army for World War I, that 2 years from now we would be fighting against.
Right.
That all comes back to that hard working, where you care about your roots and you care about pushing that forward. You
Right.
know what I mean? And whether it be the Wheeling or your city or your family, you're pushing something forward. You're propagating that. You're not just like sitting in the back seat letting things coast.
Yeah, I think that spirit's definitely come around now, where people are definitely looking forward and pushing forward. And you mentioned Hal as a guest. One of the things I was working on this week is the list of potential guests, that people that I thought would make good guests for the podcast. There's over 100 people. That's just off the top of my head, and without the people that I'm sure I'll be hearing about more of in the future.
Absolutely.
And I know that you had mentioned a couple people to me that I forgot, so they're not even on the list. And for what's considered to be a pretty small-sized city, and for a guy that doesn't even live in town, for me to come up with that many people that I find incredibly interesting, and the list keeps getting better every day, that says a lot about the area.
Yeah. I love listening to the StoryCorps. Everyone has a story, so I
Right.
think that you could walk up to anyone on the street and they would tell you something so cool about either something they've experienced or something that they're working on, or what happened, a family story that has never been told. And I think
agree.
that your list could go on forever. I'm glad to have made the top 10, though.
You did make the top 10. That's right. she snuck in at number 10.
A MySpace top 10.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I love hearing stories of Wheeling from back in the day. Alma Presbus, she was a volunteer at the hospital with me, and her son's a doctor and her grandson's a doctor.
Wait, who was her name?
Alma Presbus.
Wait, no, what's her son's name? Who's a doctor?
I think it's Aaron, maybe. I'm not sure.
I went to school with Tim Presbus, and his older brother's a doctor, and her husband would be a teacher.
Might be, yeah.
All right, I think we're talking about the same family.
I think so.
I didn't know. I never knew what the mom did. Anyways,
And
good people.
But
That's
she would
them.
talk about how when you would come to Wheeling, you would dress up even for the day, and it was a big experience to come into town, and it's amazing to think that that's how Wheeling was, that you put on your gloves, and a night out in Wheeling was a big deal. And heck, I mean, I'm old. I'm 50
Yeah.
compared to you kids.
I still don't believe it. I think you're lying.
Well, thank you.
Time traveler.
I remember that we would, this was before the Ohio Valley Mall, if you can believe that. There was only thing left of, or right of, on the other side of Route 40 was the highway and a drive-in movie theater,
Yeah.
and a big hayfield. But we would come down here for back-to-school shopping at Stone and Thomas, and we would go to the little cafe. I forget the name of what it
I
was.
couldn't tell you.
And the fountain still worked out there, and it was a big thing
Yeah.
for me to come to Wheeling. Not that we never came here, but my mom would bring me down, and for dentist appointments, and we'd park right there.
Wheeling's known for their dentists.
Got a lot of good dentists here.
We'd park at the wharf to me, which was incredible because I'd always want to go and look at the river, and Stone and Thomas was
I work with
incredible to me.
Yeah, it's funny. I work with a lady. She's a paralegal, and she retired and comes back and works part time. But she, when she found out that I bought a building in East Wheeling, she always talked to me about, because she grew up outside of Coleraine, and
Yes.
I think she's probably close to 7. No, I can't. I don't want to put an age on her because I don't want to be rude. She's definitely like what, 65 to 70,
Yeah.
and she would talk about how
Close to my age.
she would come into Wheeling because that was the thing to do. She would save up her money, and then she would grab the bus, and the bus would take her to like Bridgeport. She'd grab another bus across the river, and then she'd have all the money she saved up as a kid. This is when she was a young child.
Yeah.
And would go to like Louis Hot Dogs and the confectionaries and like window shop. And that was the thing to do, was get out of town and get to Wheeling.
Probably kind of the way we look at going to Pittsburgh for
Yeah,
the
exactly.
weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I find interesting, I live in the town of Barton, and it's an old coal mining town, but one time there was a high school, a grade school, I think 5 churches, 5 bars, a doctor, post
nice.
office, a grocery store that actually had an elevator in it, because it was the chunk of land that was on it. They stored, I think they used the upstairs for storage, and then the main floor, it was the AG. And every little town, if you look back, it was a similar experience. The people that lived in town usually worked for a mine that was within walking distance from there, and
Not everybody had a car for sure. There were trolleys and trains that took people between towns, and generally wasn't uncommon for you to marry somebody that lived in that town because you didn't meet people from other towns, and if you did, it was from the next town over.
Yeah.
And I don't know,
Or Tinder.
Or Tinder. Yeah. When they met Tinder, they met the guy that worked in the Tinder behind the locomotive. It was a different kind of Tinder, but yes, I'm sure couples did meet shoveling coal behind a locomotive, and that really wasn't that long ago. Heck, here's how old I am. I remember that we had a party line on our phone, so you'd go to call someone.
Shut up.
And the neighbors would be talking on the phone. You'd be like, man, they need to shut the hell up because I need to make this call. And
James, come on.
that never happened. No, I did live in the days where you'd call the switchboard operator and have them connect you. But yeah, I mean, I
Isn't
grew up
it crazy how much we progressed in
in my lifetime.
Yeah, in just your lifetime.
We
Now
did.
we're like swiping right to
Yeah.
to meet people.
to meet
Well,
people
Not my
with
bride.
yeah.
Swipe right.
Well, Netflix and the access to entertainment. We had 3 channels, and in the summer, everybody 7, 9, and 4. Which, if it came in, you had 4 and PBS. They ran nothing but reruns of what they showed during the regular year in the summer. So you went outside. You didn't have air conditioning, and to a certain aspect, I think that's great. There was literally nothing to do indoors on a Saturday night, so you would go to a church festival or a community festival, and that I do miss. I think that there's a little bit too many things that keep people, makes it too easy for people to stay home, which is one of the things that I think maybe my age helps me to be conscious of the fact that it does take more to draw people out of their homes on the weekends.
Yeah. So if you're sitting in your home right now and it's a Friday or Saturday night,
What are you
get
doing?
outside.
Yes.
Find
embarrassing
something to
us.
do, please.
Absolutely. And-
Call me up. We'll go hang out.
That's right. Hit
Don't-
Alex
don't
up on
phone
her Facebook.
My number
page.
is.
Well,
Just kidding.
I will say I agree with what Howard Monroe was saying earlier today, that if you think that there's nothing to do in the High Valley, it's because you're not trying hard enough. And if you're sitting at home complaining that there's nothing to do, maybe it's because that's what you really want to do.
Yeah.
But I even agree myself. I'll make plans to go to dinner with friends on a Monday, and when the plans come around, it's so much easier to just stay at home in my pajamas and watch Netflix. Thank God I was still probably with my parents and my generation that if you make plans for Friday night, you go even if you don't feel like it. And the great thing is that once you get there, you're glad you went.
Yeah.
But it does take a little bit of effort to break away from all the things. I mean, we're not bored at home. Nobody's ever bored. We have these phones that are at the end of our hands that have endless information and games and contact with people. And you do feel like because you get a little interaction from Facebook, it gives you the feeling that you're interacting with people. You're not.
Yeah, it's easier to swipe right than it is to walk up to someone in a
person,
bar and say,
right.
"Hi, Will Wallace.
Yeah.
You want to be
Don't
my
talk to
friend?"
Yeah, and well, that's interesting that you mentioned. I was talking to somebody at work. When I would go to a bar in the '90s, it wasn't uncommon to talk to a stranger. You'd be getting a drink, and especially if it was a cute girl. But even if it was just a dude, you would you'd carry on a conversation, and maybe that person a year later is your best friend. Or
Yeah.
I remember I'd just broken up with a girl, and this kind of getting into a personal story, but me and a couple of my friends, we were all in a similar situation, and we'd go to the same bar together, and we always wish we had a bigger group of friends, and that was at the beginning of summer. And by Christmas time, I remember looking at Jarvis, one of the 3, and we're at this table with this big group of friends, and we're like, this is what we always wanted, to have like a big group of friends, and it happened over time. And I don't know that conditions are as easy for that to happen, because I noticed that people are less open to that. If you're playing pool or something, and the table next door, if you have a conversation with them, they almost look at you like you're weird.
Yeah. I remember very distinctly, it was probably over a year ago, and this is perfect because you were going to tell Sarah that we were telling embarrassing stories of
Yeah.
her. So this isn't really
perfect.
embarrassing, but I think it
No,
speaks
make
very
it embarrassing live.
No, I think it's very true to what we were saying. It was just her and I at the brewery. We were sitting at the bar, just having a drink, and Sarah had overheard a conversation from a couple seats over, and it was two guys who were talking about a book that she had read. I don't even remember what it was or anything. She's like, oh, that's so interesting. Like, I want to say something. I'm like, just say something then. Yeah. And she never did. And I think it is hard to break that barrier to, like, say, like, oh, that's, like, so interesting, like, to butt in on a conversation because we just have it so perceived as being something rude or something creepy. But, I mean, you're out in public, like,
and that's
if
kind of
you're sitting at a bar, you're going to pick up conversations. Why not start that with someone? Isn't that why you're out anyway, to make connections?
I got two quick stories on that. Is one, I was at the Penguins playoff game last night, and I was at the bar buying a drink, and some dude walked up, and he was stretching his neck out to see the board of the prices were, and I just made the common joke to him. I said, oh, don't even look at the prices, because, I mean, I think it was $20 for a double shot of something. It's like absurd. Yeah. And his response was, oh, yeah. And then he just walked away and went to the bar somewhere else. And I was like, oh, all right, well, fuck me, right? I mean,
why is this person talking to me? I don't know you. We didn't grow up together.
On the flip side, I was sent out to Phoenix, Arizona for work last winter, and I wanted to see the Grand Canyon, so I made a point to fly out early, and I rented a car, and I drove up to Flagstaff, and I spent the night in Flagstaff by myself. And I just picked a random brewery. That place looks like it's happening. I sat down at the bar and I got dinner, and these two college kids were talking next to me, and they said something about like a Jim Carrey movie, and I just was like, oh, hey, Jim Carrey, or some joke, some stupid. I'm known for my really bad jokes. Yeah. And, we ended up talking all night, and it was nice. It was really cool. I told those kids that they were ever on the East Coast, holler at me, and I'd make my trip out to see them, and give them my contact information. We talked all night till closing time. Like, I got way too drunk. But
and so I wonder if it's the fact that people are closed off, or it's just a perception, and like Sarah, she was nervous about because she thought maybe they wouldn't be receptive, and maybe she was just wrong, and so maybe we should commit ourselves to being more open and put yourself out there. And anybody that's listening to this, next time you're in this situation like Sarah was, where you're trying to decide whether, well, is it cool for me to just go up and say hi? You said hi to some women as they walked into the bar tonight.
Did I?
Yes, the girl with short hair.
Oh, Bev, yeah.
So when I went up to get a drink, I was standing next to them, and I said, oh, so you know Will Wallace? And she said, yeah. I said, oh, I'm sorry. But then we just had a conversation, and she saw my case, and she said, what's that? And I said, well, it's 5 pounds of cocaine. And the guy next to me said, I'll give you $100 for it. I thought it was great. It was like a nice little banner. And so rather than just sit there between these two people,
you just order your drink.
While I'm ordering a drink, I'm like, well, they know Will. It's not that weird. And just say hi to people. And actually, we had a nice conversation in the 3 minutes while I was getting my drink. And if you run into them again, then
I think it's a good message for both sides of it. If you're nervous about saying hi, just say hi. What's the worst that can happen? And if someone's saying hi to you or initiating contact at a bar or wherever, they might not be creepy. They might just be from out of town, and
just a nice, friendly person.
Yeah.
And
I like when you said it might not be creepy. You pointed at me.
It might not be creepy. I mean, when it's Will Wallace, I don't know. It's a toss-up. So.
It's true. Well, one of the, now that I'm an old man, one of the philosophy. Well, I have a couple of philosophies today. I don't want to take any shit from anybody, but I don't want to give anybody any shit. And I also just figured, just take a leap and build a parachute on the way down. And I used to be so much of the kind of person that I had to have everything planned out and know what's going to happen next and know what the contingency is and think of everything. And now I'm kind of the opposite, where I just, even the podcast, I don't prepare for them. A lot of the movie shoots even, I prepare to a certain point, and then I just decide that I'm going to figure it out when I get there, and whatever happens, happens. And so far, I think, if nothing else, it's made me a person of action. And even the show of hands, when we were here, at the last minute, Desi said, just speak from your heart. Because I had notes, and I was going to read thing that I had timed out that I thought would be about 4 minutes, and at the last minute I just left the paper on the table, and I'm happy with the way things turned out, and that's if I can encourage anybody, don't overthink things, be a person of action,
just do it,
go out there and do it, and you're definitely going to fail,
Just give a shit right now.
Yeah, I think that I never thought I had a motto, but I think that
That's a really good
in the
one.
recent weeks, like I've been saying give a shit a lot. So I think that's it. Just give a shit,
give a
and
shit.
it'll be okay.
Well, I think it's good to have a motto or a mantra or a thought in mind, a way that you're approaching life at that moment. That helps guide you when you get to certain intersections in your life, and give a shit is definitely a good one, and get involved and so if you're listening to this and you don't have a motto, give a shit.
Give a shit.
Give a shit and come up with your own damn motto.
Yeah.
Don't steal Alex Panas.
Panachis.
I get Panas. I get
Panas.
Panas. I get
That's a bad
other
one.
That's not
other names too, but it's Panas.
fair. And you were worried that we wouldn't have anything to talk about.
Here we are at 90 minutes.
Yeah, 90.
I'm sorry, everyone, that you had to
90.
listen to us for that long.
Well, they didn't. That's the thing. If they're listening at this point, it's because they wanted to.
Yes, well, thank you. I appreciate it. And if any of you want to be my friend, find me on Facebook.
Oh.
And so
I don't have a personal page, or I don't have a public figure page, but you can find my personal account and I'll approve you.
Yeah.
If you're worth approving.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And-
If you don't give a shit, I don't give a shit. I'm just kidding. I sound so mean now. Can we just end this?
Yeah, I think we will.
I didn't mean to.
Just give a shit.
Just give a shit, people.
Well, Alex, it's been a pleasure the last 2 weeks being your friend, and thanks for coming on the podcast. And it's been a lot of fun. And Will, thank you for co-hosting the first of many, I'm sure.
I hope it
unless I get a bunch of messages from people saying, "Don't have that asshole."
That guy's an asshole. He doesn't even talk great sentences like that one.
He ain't talk right.
He ain't talk right.
He makes West Virginia look bad, and
I'll try my best to.
and thank you for listening to all the episodes if you have, and like on Facebook, and like I said earlier, let me know how you found the podcast, what you think of it. Anyhow, all right, coming up next after this, we're going to try to have some local rap music. I'll hit up Ron Scott and ask him what we should tag at the end of this one, since Alex is a rap fan.
I am. That would be great.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Woo.
Give a shit.
Give a shit.
Yo. Hey, Kels. Bro. They ain't ready. Had a lot of shit change, I don't fuck with nobody. A lot of shit change, now that rapping ain't a hobby. Had a lot of shit change, everybody won't rob me. All that shit changed, but it still won't stop me. Had a lot of shit change, I don't fuck with nobody. A lot of shit change, now that rapping ain't a hobby. Had a lot of shit change, everybody won't rob me. All that shit changed, but it still won't stop me. But it still won't stop me.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody.
But it still won't stop me.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with
Okay, it's
nobody.
time for them to see this energy that I've been saving up. I straightened up my life for this, some spiteful shit I'm baking up. So crank it up for those of them who never ever gave a fuck. Banking up the spread, I bet they saying that I'm changing up. Making up rumors, how we up and we coming. I want to shout out to the shout outs from them homies that love it. If it's possible to fly, I guarantee that I'm gonna. The only thing that's on my mind is money and marijuana. If shit change, I mean, how can they blame me? Maybe if shit was still the same, niggas wouldn't be lazy. Crazy how niggas hear the names and they so quickly can say we may be the best out here lately. No wonder them niggas hate me. It's
Had a
Kev.
lot of shit change, I don't fuck with nobody. A lot of shit change, now that rapping ain't a hobby. Had a lot of shit change, everybody won't rob me. All that shit changed, but it still won't stop me. But it still won't stop me.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with
Nah,
nobody.
but it still won't stop me.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody.
Had a lot of shit change, I don't fuck with nobody. Pop pills for the pain, now I got a sober body. Music grind for the fame, came a long way from a hobby. Couldn't get strange, now a bad bitch riding shoddy. I've been getting to the bucks, cause I wasn't born with it. Came a long way from opening car door hinges just to take your riches. I was hardcore with it, if a cop chased hot gates, I was parkour with it. Had a lot of people try to cross me on some Jesus shit. So trusting a few disciples is the way that I'm seeing shit. Earn my stripes on some zebra shit. Now my paper legal, bitch. You hating Caitlyn Jenner, diva, Knicks can eat a dick. Hating is what they be on. Put it in your girl mouth, her head shaped like a safety cone. She deflate my balls, I'm Tom Brady's clone. Never needed a soul, I could stay alone.
Had a lot of shit change, I don't fuck with nobody. A lot of shit change, now that rapping ain't a hobby. Had a lot of shit change, everybody want rob me. All that shit changed, but it still won't stop me. But it still won't stop me.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody.
But it still won't stop me.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody.
I don't fuck with nobody. I had a lot of shit change like Obama. Oh, now they sick, cause they know I'm about to blow like Osama. They biting swag like piranhas, I'm getting hot like a sauna. I was fucking with a thought, but now I got a Rihanna. I want the green like iguana, I'm trying to eat like a llama. Put that ganja in the bone, cause I ain't with all the drama. I tell my haters they nada, fuck that Gucci and Prada. Stick to Nike, cause it's simple, I just do what I wanna. I'ma rap till I'm under, it's not a thing as you see. I am that motherfucker that they been wanting to be. I got my name from a G, I'll let the fame come to me. And fuck them lanes, I'll never change, I remain what you see. Nice.
You are now listening to AJ Beats.